Welcome to the Royals Rundown Podcast, the premier Kansas City Royals podcast presented by Royals Review. He is Jeremy Greco. I am Jacob Milham, and in the spirit of Royals fans' spirits after the first two games of the season, after opening day, let's crush it. All right, it was pretty down in the dumps. We're recording this like 20 minutes after Game 3, so we're a lot happier, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, and in the spirit of the Royals bets today, let's crush it.
Woo! No doubt. We will we'll get to that. Plus, I do want to plug this. If you are looking for game-specific stuff, like if you want the lowdown on every single game, you got to go check out the Royals recaps. I've brought that back for the beginning of this season. Now, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Y'all longtime listeners know, am I going to continue it throughout the entire season? I would like to think so. I put y'all up to a challenge. That challenge was not met last year. Let's rise up when that time comes.
And that's somebody else's. That's the Mariners, right? Rise up.
I guess so.
On some other team, that's their thing. You can't steal that.
The Royals recaps just matter more. Okay, they just matter more. Let's make sure that they continue mattering by continuing. I'm gonna stop now. I'm just spiraling already. Y'all already know it if you've been listening for a while. If you want to keep updated on all things Kansas City Royals, the best place to do that is at royalsreview.com. You can also follow them on X and Facebook. Plus, you can follow the podcast on X and TikTok at Royal Rundown Pod. That is
ROYALRUNDOWN
POD. I already misspelled it, Jeremy.
You did.
This is why we don't have as many followers as we could, because
no
I can't
one knows where to find us, especially all the people who are currently listening to us. They can't find us because you misspelled the name.
Exactly. So I really feel bad for folks who don't know what they're getting into when they hit play on this podcast.
I mean, you should though. They should know. We're the premier podcast. You don't need to know how to spell our name to know what we're up to here.
Hashtag clout. All right. Let's keep it moving. If you want to interact with us two crazy people for some reason, the best place to do that is on Spotify with our polls and Q&As. We have a ton of responses to read through later on in the show. That'll be right before our Royals reviews. But coming up in today's episode, we will talk about Kansas City's opening series against the Minnesota Twins and their upcoming road trip to Camden Yards. Who dropped the ball most this past weekend, and who matters most against the next 2023 postseason team? We'll discuss that as well. After that, we got to talk about it, Jeremy. We got to talk about the stadium update.
Yeah,
and
you know me. I famously refused to speak on this subject until now.
Yes, you did. You know what, folks, that is a lot of restraint from Jeremy, okay? I absolutely love Jeremy, but this man sometimes does not know how to restrain himself when it comes to stadium and tax updates, okay? He gets red in the face talking about this stuff.
I do.
If it
red in the face, but that's a separate matter.
That's a whole other thing.
It's a skin condition, Jacob. I can't help it, okay?
We are way off the rails already, as Honey just pointed out. All right. So like I said before, Jeremy and I really aren't going to talk about Sunday's exciting win specifically. The best place to learn about that is through our Royals recap series. Basically, if you haven't listened to an episode already, one, you are missing out. And what it essentially is I break down the game into a digestible episode. I sprinkle in some post-game sound bites, and all in all, tell you what you need to know after each game. I try to make it about 15 to 20 minutes max. I absolutely love Josh Vernier and what he does, but listening to an hour and a half long episode after each game can be a little draining. So I wanted to create something that was a little shorter. But that'll be in the podcast feed directly before this episode. I'm going to release that here shortly. Jeremy, let's go ahead and talk about the series. I don't think I've been so excited to see a series loss this much, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna start talking first. Sorry. I'm excited. Fine. the thing, okay, so the Royals lost the first 2 games, and that
Right.
sucked, and it wasn't fun, and I complained about it on Twitter. A lot of people complained about it on Twitter. But the reality is, especially after that third game, which went very well, that when things went poorly in those first 2 games, they were the things that the Royals could most afford to go poorly. So it was Will Smith failing. It was Chris Stratton failing. Bobby Witt Jr. was hitting. MJ Melendez was hitting. Michael Garcia had a home run. He had another one today. So, those are his only 2 hits, but that was what we were asking for. We said, Michael, get it in the air a little bit more, buddy. Gutty, guy, buddy, guy, Gutty. He got it in the air more. He did he hit, and the opening day, he only had the 1 home run, but he hit every ball he hit was hard. The home run was the weakest ball he hit at 99 point something miles per hour.
Super weak, very weak.
Yeah. So it's a positive step. Cole Reagan still looks like Cole Reagan. Bobby Witt Jr. still looks like Bobby Witt Jr. I think his OPS is over 2,000 right now. Cue the Vegeta meme. So things are looking up. Nelson Velasquez had a home run today that I think was my favorite of all the home runs, because that was an awkward looking swing with some not great sounding contact, and it just flew right over the wall.
Yep.
So there's a lot of positives, I think, to take away from this opening series, even though they only came away with 1 win.
Yeah, and that's, I had a piece go up this morning from Kings of Kaufman talking about manager Matt Quatrero's and Will Smith's tone-deaf responses to his implosion. Yeah, and I get it. That was me writing a little bit more of the negative trend to start off this morning. But you're absolutely right. Some of as a whole, not everything has gone right for the Royals in this opening series. I spoke about it a little bit in the recap if folks are listening to this out of order, but let's look at the whole series and let's see what we got. So first off, runs scored, they're averaging a little bit more than 4 runs a game. That's a notable improvement if I'm recalling correctly, and that'll absolutely play.
Yep.
Now, would I like to have those runs dispersed a little bit more? Yeah, I sure would, Jeremy.
Absolutely.
Let's see what else. Oh, I'm sorry. We got to talk about this. We got to talk about the rotation, because this rotation might just be, I'm looking at the numbers, and they might just be one of the best ones this opening weekend. That's kind of what it's looking like. If you had to look without the numbers, how are you feeling about the rotation?
Terrific. Just eyeballing it, because I actually get to watch all 3 games. Cole Reagan's was the fastball was good, the slider was amazing. Seth Lugo wasn't getting strikeouts, but he was getting weak contact. So, and that's kind of what we expect from him. He's not going to be the strikeout guy. But Brady Singer today, that was the real revelation for me. Dude was mostly throwing his slider and sinker still, which is a little bit of a bummer. But the pitch mix was a little bit different. He usually throws more sinkers than sliders. Today he flipped that. He was throwing more sliders than sinkers. And I got to tell you, Jacob, the slider was working.
Ooh, it
was killing some Twins. They had some awful looking swings at pitches that were in the dirt. And if that's what your slider's doing, why would you throw anything else?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I'm looking at his overall. So let's stick on Singer, as I just lied to everyone and said we weren't going to talk about game specific stuff. But Singer's details are important enough that we have to touch on them. The guy threw 98 pitches today, which, first off, that was a positive all on its own. Like you said, he's stuck with the slider and sinker. We saw a couple of changeups. We saw the sweeper poke its head out. So he at least threw them a couple of times, which was nice. On his slider, I want to focus on that. The Twins swung at it 26 times and they whiffed 16 times. That's a 62% whiff rate.
That will play every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Exactly. And overall, that let's see. So the slider, if if you don't know what this is, CSW is called strikes plus whiffs. So he had 16 whiffs and then 7 called strikes
Oh my
on the
gosh.
slider. So for a 44% CSW, that's an
Yep.
elite level on a pitch right there. So
Yeah.
that's great to see. And these are mostly experienced Twins batters. Like we're not going up against some overmatched lineup. Like this is
Yeah.
a pretty solid roster.
Absolutely. And I do want to, maybe a little water, splash of cold water on this is that
Yeah,
he was getting some calls
he
today
was. He was.
that you might not normally expect him to get. But it's up to a pitcher when he gets those calls to use them, and he was. So it's better than the alternative of the guys getting the calls and he's still getting hit around, right?
Yeah.
He was living on the edges, so it made sense that he was getting those calls. Also, getaway day, blowout game. So, that stuff all matters. But still, even before the game was out of reach, his slider was looking phenomenal. And the sinker playing off of the slider rather than the other way around was back to getting those called strikes on the outer edge that he got when he was really good in 2022. So if Brady Singer, who I going into this weekend thought might be the weakest starter in the Royals rotation right now,
Man.
because I'm very high on Alec Marsh. I know that I
True.
might be a
True.
little too high on him, but I am. If he's the weakest starter, this rotation is going to be phenomenal this year.
Yeah.
And I just want to add one more thing since I'm stealing the mic from you a little
You're
bit
fine.
here. Is that going back? One thing I didn't say about the bullpen is like it's good for the future of the team that the guys who were struggling were Will Smith and Chris Stratton, who are not under contract after this year. So if they bomb, like, oh well, they just don't come back, and we try to do better next year. But
Yeah.
the other thing is that as relievers, if they're bombing and other guys aren't, they're the easiest to just move back. You're just like, Will Smith, you have a 5, you have a 10 ERA, whatever it is. Well, right now you're the closer, but if you continue that and James MacArthur pitches well, Angel Zerpa was fantastic on opening day. I've not been an Angel Zerpa fan. That game would make me one.
Oh.
He was terrific. So if guys are looking really good and Stratton and Smith aren't, they will move down. And we'll see other guys step up because the bullpen is always kind of the most fluid situation on a baseball roster. Unless you've got like a guy who's been a closer on your team for 6-7 years or whatever, which is not the case here. So we don't, if the team is playing well and it's just Will Smith that's not pitching well, Will Smith will stop pitching in high leverage situations pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it. Like you said, just the bullpen is super fluid, and we're expecting so many other additions throughout the season to come up from AAA Omaha. Like I looked at Omaha's bullpen to start off the 2024 season, and it's full of guys that I could see coming up and making a real difference
Yeah.
in Kansas City, notably like Will Klein, Sam Long. I'm a little concerned about John McMillan. He got roughed up, and according to Preston Farr, the velo is down, so maybe there might be he might not be ready to go yet. But we got to look at the grand scheme right now because there are. We say again.
Don't forget Walter Pennington.
Oh my gosh, how could I? How could I? But there's 159 games left.
Yep.
It sounds cliche. The Royals are one game under 500. So that's not bad. So let's go ahead and move on to the next series because things don't get easier for the Royals moving on.
They get harder, I would argue.
Yeah. So I'm looking at their schedule here. Now you're gonna have to bear with me a little bit, listeners and Jeremy. So the Royals looking at their first 38 games through May 8th. So that's a good, that's where people are going to start kind of hitting the panic button probably through the end of April, early May.
Except for the people who've already been hammering it for the past 2 days.
True. Golly.
There were not a few people. Like yesterday, I was complaining. I was like, man, this team hasn't looked good for 2 games. But I was not like, oh, the season is over. There were people who were saying, the season is over. They're going to lose 100 games again. And I'm like, guys, I mean, they could. It's possible. But you might want to relax a little bit.
Yeah, let's give them a little bit of breathing room. And today it showed exactly why we need to give them that breathing room.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Okay, so first 38 games of the season, right? 25 of them are going to be against teams who made the playoffs last season.
Yeah.
And it's against multiples. It's against the Twins, the Astros, the Brewers, the world champions Rangers. You have 6 games against the Orioles, the Blue Jays. Like, nothing is getting easier
No.
against them. They have 7 games against the White Sox and 3 games against the Mets and the Tigers, respectively. That is it. That's it for the. I'm not going to call them gimme games, of course, but like these were teams kind of on the level of the Royals last year. Let's see how they do. No, that you can't rely on that. They're going to have to step up to the plate in a big way. And that next stop is in Camden Yards against the Baltimore Orioles, which unfortunately I do. Oddly enough, Jeremy Fistifer DM'd me on Twitter asking me which Orioles game I was going to try to get to. Unfortunately, I am not going to be able to get up to Camden Yards tomorrow. Yeah, I was really hoping to, but sometimes things just don't work out. Now I have an excuse to fly out to Kauffman Stadium, right?
Sure.
So moving on, against the Orioles, we're going to see Michael Wacha's debut. He is going to face up against Dean Kremer on Monday, and then on Tuesday we get to see the first start from Alec Marsh as the number 5 rotational guy in 2024. So looking forward to that. He's facing against Cole Irvin. And then Wednesday is going to be a great matinee where Cole Reagans is going to face off against Corbin Burns. So that's, I know, that is going to be a good one. Exactly. I know you're licking your chops.
Yeah, that's gonna be a well pitched game right there.
It is
kind of like we saw Thursday.
Yeah. I'm looking at some of Waka's numbers and some of the things in the media notes. So in 10 career starts versus Baltimore, he's 3-1, but he has a 5.19 ERA, which is not great. But his teams are 9-1 in those 10 starts, so that certainly helps. And he's allowed 1 run or fewer in 5 of those 10 starts. So historically, he's fairly okay against the Orioles. Seems like he got roughed up a few times there, but that just happens sometimes when you look at team splits. So, Jeremy, before I ask you about the panic button question, I do want to ask, who was your series standout against the Twins and why?
I mean, it's got to be Bobby Witt Jr.
Okay.
He had 3 doubles, a triple, a home run, a single, and at least 1 walk, maybe 2, I forget. Just that's not even picking up where he left off last year. That's going to another level. Now it's 3 games. So like don't expect him to carry this over 2000 OPS for the entire season. That would be insane, and
It would.
and I would probably just die of happiness if that happened. But he was doing it. Even Saturday was the worst game, I think, for the Royals offensively, when they only had 5 hits, and he had 2 of them, and they were both doubles. The only extra base hits in that game. So, and in a game where everybody else was really struggling, and he almost hit for the cycle today. He was fantastic. He was everything. There was no step back at all, at least not yet, from Bobby Witt Jr. And that, I think, is a terrific sign for a bright future for this team.
I like it. I'm gonna have to. I'll stay away from the pitchers. We've already talked about them enough. MJ Melendez really impressed me this series. He had multiple extra base hits as well. His OPS is sitting north of 1,000 right now as well, and his plate approach is really impressing me so far. Only 2 strikeouts against the Twins across the entire series, so that certainly helped.
And he took at least 1 walk too, right?
Yeah. He took 1 walk today against the Twins, so that was, and it's just really clean right now. Like sometimes when he was struggling last year, you could see him swinging out of his shoes sometimes, or too afraid to take a swing, and we're not seeing that right now. So very excited to see that. I got to say it. I am also surprised by Adam Frazier He's looked a little better than I anticipated. What do
Oh
you think,
yeah.
Jeremy? Yeah, I think so. Listen, I get it. The broadcast was, I think it was HUD talking
Oh my
about, oh yeah,
goodness.
the Royals brought in Adam Frazier for situational hitting, and then he like immediately lined a ground ball to Carlos Santana
Yep.
that he got out on, but didn't advance.
They spent all weekend talking up Adam Frazier. Both Ryan and Rex were very excited about him, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
guys, this ain't it.
it's not. But hey, listen, he is one of the few Royals with multiple RBIs right now. He has 3 hits, which is, it ties, or excuse me, it's tied for third most on the team right now. He can't draw a walk to save his life, but he's hitting the ball a few times, so that helps. But we'll see how much. I don't know. We'll see how he does in his return to Camden Yards.
Yeah.
I think he might come back to ground
He's
level a
he's
little
no
bit
Hunter
more.
Renfro, I'll give him that.
Well, hey, speaking of Hunter Renfro, who do you think did the worst this series?
Yeah, so that is exactly why I brought him up. He's my worst performer for the series. 0 for 7, 4 strikeouts. Got the day off on Sunday, and I was super excited. I was like, "Yeah, get that guy out of the lineup." All right, which is not what you want from your biggest position player acquisition during the off season. But that's where we are, and that's where I kind of worried we would be.
Yeah,
I'm sure he'll get a hit at some point. Even last year, he still hit 20 home runs, so he's not without some value. It's just a shame that they guaranteed him basically 2 years if he sucks, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be paying him for both of those years.
yeah. I would have to go with Will Smith. Unfortunately,
Sure.
we already talked about it, but his 4 run inning in the ninth on Saturday really just extinguished any hopes that the Royals had of coming back in that game. But also, it was I'm trying to think. There were so many more, or the expectations on Smith were higher this year than guys like Nick Anderson and Chris Stratton, even. He was kind of the veteran. He's going to be the 1A option at closer, if you ask me. And then he comes in and promptly lays that sort of egg. So that was very disappointing to me. I'm sure he's going to bounce back. I really do trust that. But he had a second opportunity to make a first impression with the Royals fan base. And like I said on the recap last night, he shit the bed. That's
Yeah, it's for me with Will Smith, it's one game. I'm not going to put too much stock into that. But also, I do think the expectations are a little high for him. The naming him the closer just before the season, before the preseason even started, was a huge overstep mistake to me. Because he's a good pitcher, he's a veteran who has closed, but
yep.
he is no longer, if he ever really was, like a guy that you're like, yeah, he's definitely the closer.
Yeah.
And could he be the closer? It's possible. I would have liked to see, I think, James MacArthur, who pitched very well in September last year, kind of get that shot. And I know he gave up 1 run yesterday too, but those were kind of some fluky hits on him.
Yeah.
And so I'm not too worried. I'm really not super worried about anybody. Now, if Will Smith has a couple more bad outings, then we can talk.
Yeah, I like that approach. And speaking of, giving it a couple of more outings, I do want to ask you, when are you hitting the panic button? Like, is it the 40 game mark where you're going to make the determination on the series? I know Kevin O'Brien said the Memorial Day games were kind of his mark as well. Like, when are you going to hit the panic button, if at all?
So usually the time I hit the panic button is when they go on a big losing streak and they
Hmm.
just don't show any signs of life. That's usually what happens to these Royals teams when they get bad. So I don't have a definitive date. You talked about how in those first kind of 40-ish games, they're playing a lot of playoff teams or former playoff teams that still look pretty good this year. So if they're under 500 at that mark, I don't think that's the end of the world. I don't think you look at that and go, oh no. Now, if they're over 500 at that mark, or even around 500 at that mark, I think you're looking at it going, okay, this is a serious playoff contender on our hands.
Yep.
Because the schedule, it doesn't necessarily get easier from there, but it doesn't get harder. Um,
Yeah.
And if they're still playing competitive through this first quarter of the season, then I think you've got something serious on your hands. I think like I've already kind of said, I think this rotation looks really good. So the big question is, what's the offense going to do? To
Yeah.
me, and I think the bullpen will find it'll either guys will get better or it'll shake out so that the guys who are pitching better will pitch later, as I've kind of already mentioned. So yeah, the lineup is what I'm worried about. And as we kind of talked about, some of these guys still look really good. We just kind of got to spread the runs out a little bit better.
I like that. So I would go to the 40 game. That's kind of the quarter way mark of the season, and it's kind of hard to dig yourself out of a hole at that point if you are in one. I'm going to extend it out to 60 games right now, because I'm looking at, okay, who do they play after those first 38 games I talked about? They play teams like the Los Angeles Angels and the Oakland Athletics but then they also still face the Tampa Bay Rays and the Seattle Mariners and then the Minnesota Twins once again. Like that's more of a balanced schedule, if you ask me, at least as we look at it from the third game of the season. Now, could some of those teams look like contenders and some could be pretenders? Yeah, absolutely. We'll just have to watch how the season evolves. But I think I'll start making. I'm going to steal Kevin's answer, I guess, is around that June 1st, May 31st mark is when I'm really going to be making my, okay, this is another terrible season, or this team does actually have a shot. Let's see here, Jeremy. Anything else from the Twins series before we move on?
Did I mention Angel Zerpa? He really,
Yeah.
really impressed me. Just to throw that out there again. The fastball, I didn't look at the velocity, but it had a lot of life on it. And he was pitching inside to guys and making them real uncomfortable, which was kind of what he did when he first came up, was pitching inside to guys, but the fastball looked like it had more life to me than it did the first time. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to do out of the bullpen after feeling kind of let down that after Josh Taylor had a pretty good spring and Walter Pennington and Sam Long had really good springs, that Angel Zerpa ended up being that last lefty in the bullpen.
Yep, he can still prove us wrong. So I'm very much looking forward to that. All right, Jeremy. Before actually, no, there's nothing else to get to before the stadium talk. We gotta let's go ahead and talk about it. So, if you're not interested in it, go ahead and turn the dial. I ain't gonna lie, but this is I don't want to say hard hitting stuff, but we love talking about things on the diamond. This is actually some real world stuff, and
Yep.
we get to voice our opinions on it a little bit more. First off, I want to get this out of the way. It really did feel tone deaf for the Royals to lose that Saturday game and then come out immediately afterwards. Hey, we got all these endorsements to vote yes on April 2nd, so you should too. And it's like, okay, well, you've only scored 2 runs in 2 games and you've lost the first two. So why the heck should I vote yes? But Jeremy, your finger is way more on the pulse of this right now. So I want to let you drive this bus. Um, I am going to give us the first stop though.
Yeah.
Are you feeling like the vote no movement is waning a little bit, or is it picking up steam?
I think it's picking up steam. I
Okay.
think I talked about this last week. I can't remember if this had come out before we recorded last week or not. But when the KC Star came out and said
Yeah.
vote no, that was a big deal to me. Um, because I feel like there's probably a lot of people who are like, well, I already pay 3/8 cents tax. I want baseball and football to stay in Kansas City. I'm not going to think about it beyond that. And they would just kind of vote yes. But the Kansas City Star is such a big publication in the area, that having them, and it's, as they pointed out in their write up where they advocate everyone vote no, it's against their best interest. If the teams leave Kansas City, the Star is in big trouble. They have I don't know how much you know about this, Jacob, but they have a sports only subscription that they sell
That's
online
true.
where you
Yeah.
can just read the sports section. The reason they do that is because there are people who just want the sports section. A lot of people, enough people that it makes sense to create that for them. So to lose the sports in Kansas City, and I'm sorry, Current and Sporting, you guys are not enough. to hang on to keep the Kansas City Star going by yourselves, much as you try. They need the Royals and the Chiefs to stay in town to continue functioning.
Yeah.
The Star, I think, would have a real chance of going completely under if
Whew.
the Royals and Chiefs left town. So it's a big deal for them to say, no, you should not vote for this. And a lot of what they said is kind of the stuff that we've been talking about. I know the Good Jobs Coalition is still out there campaigning and canvassing against it. Obviously, I have written far too many words on this subject and said even more. So I do think that the Say No campaign is very, very strong.
Okay, I like it, and just folks, I there's a lot of different things that are going boots on ground there in the county. Like I'm seeing some of these mailers that folks are getting
Yeah.
to
Oh my
vote yes.
gosh.
Some of them are absolutely wild, Jeremy.
Yeah, one of those is just I've already been furious about this whole thing. Obviously, I don't like being treated like I'm stupid, and I feel like the team is treating everyone like they're stupid. And one of these mailers that goes out very much plays on like it's like don't let the libtards steal your sports, and then it's got pictures of angry black women from the protests, and
Yeah,
it's like so we're doing misogyny and racism to try and convince people to vote yes, huh? That's what we're doing right now. This seems like the way to go, huh? Um,
apparently so.
I am beyond incensed when I saw those last night or this morning.
Whew.
Just absolutely insane behavior. There's just no reason to go there. There's no reason at all to take that path. And honestly, now that I think about it, I literally just thought of this. That's actually probably a good sign that they're afraid that they're going to lose this thing, so they're
Oh,
willing to go that far with their tactics to try and win this thing right now.
to kind of stoop that low
Yeah,
to just and I'll say this for the folks out there who are thinking, "Oh, well, this is actually what happened." I get it that what's it called? That specific mailer said that we are not associated with either team officially, but we want you to vote yes. I I
but
get
it's from the
that.
organization that the Royals keep retweeting, isn't it?
So that mailer I don't think came from that
Okay.
organization. I don't think so. I can
I,
double check. I have not heard that it did. Um, but the blatant fear mongering
yeah.
is what I'm going to say. It didn't come from the organization. Now that vote yes account, yeah, they've done some subtle like, hey, if you vote no, you're voting against football and baseball in Kansas City, not just in Jackson County, in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Period. I'll get to where I stand on this here in a little bit. But Jeremy, you're the more passionate one. You're the more educated one. So I want to give you. I want to make sure you have the floor to give people your final pitch for voting no
So let me
or
just
yes if you want to surprise me. I mean,
I'd love to, but I'm not going to this time. But I just to some color, I guess, for anyone who didn't get to watch today's game, John Sherman was in the booth at one point today, and Ryan pitched him, I think, what Ryan thought was a softball question. So, what is a community benefits agreement, and why should people want it? And John Sherman's immediate response was to talk about all the charitable work that the Royals do in the organization or do in the community now, even without an agreement, which just a avoids the question, doesn't answer the question, and B proves simultaneously while just ignoring the question that he doesn't really understand what the answer to the question is. Because again, I'm going to reiterate this for probably the sixth or seventh time. A community benefits agreement has nothing to do with charity, and it has nothing to do with the county government.
mhm.
Anything that is charity or is with the county government is not part of a community benefits agreement, a true one. Especially in Missouri, because Missouri does have a state law that went up, I believe, in 2017, which does not allow communities to kind of do their own working condition setup. The state laws preempt anything that local communities might do. So the county cannot agree to a wage floor. They can't. Not allowed. So the Royals would have to make some sort of agreement that did not involve the county in order to make that happen. But so that's the thing I just want to keep hitting on is the Royals keep talking about, oh, we're going to give all this money, and I got to tell y'all, 260 million, which is the number they keep touting, which is also the money that's coming from the Chiefs. Remember, the Royals are doing over 40 years, not a lot of money, not even charitable giving a lot of money from an organization, from a $1 billion organization like the Royals. That's what they just sold for. That's what they're worth, at least, because baseball organization values only go up. That's why billionaires keep buying them. It is $140 million is pennies to them. It is nothing to them. To put it in kind of context of $1 billion doing 140 million, divide that, by 1,000 and you get 100,000, right? 100,000. So then divide 140 million by 1,000. You get, I believe, well, now I'm failing at doing math in my head.
I am as well.
140 million divided by 1,000 is 140,000.
Not a lot.
Nope. And so like, hang on, I think I've done my math wrong here. This is embarrassing for someone who's a computer science major. So you actually have to divide 1 billion by 10 to get it to 100,000, which is like kind of the most many of us will probably really kind of earn in a year.
Yeah.
So our yearly donation to match that would be, nope, I'm failing at my math. Screw that. We're not talking about that because I can't do the math right now. This is not much money, is my point. Okay. And I put out that social media video about how the Royals can give it to themselves and they can prevent the county from giving it to anywhere that they don't want them to give it to, which is a problem even if the Royals don't want to give the money to themselves, the fact that it's allowed in this contract is problematic. And even if they don't, the fact that the Royals can then determine that it can't go certain places. Well, what if the Royals decide, for example, that they hate white people now? They hate white people, so they don't want the money to be donated to any organization that supports white people. Is that okay? Should that be okay? No, shouldn't be okay. But currently that would be, kind of something that could happen. It's just mind-boggling that not only is this not a community benefits agreement, but it's not even a good setup for a charitable donation.
Yeah.
And it frustrates me to no end that the team has treated people with such a lack of respect on this issue. Let me just give you kind of a preview of what I wrote in an article that should be going up tomorrow morning. The Royals are asking for a lot of trust. And I wrote, Kauffman Stadium is dying of concrete cancer. Can we see the study that proves it? No, trust them. And I've got links for all of this, by the way, in the article. Yep. A new downtown stadium will bring economic benefits for everyone. Can we see the study that proves it? No, trust them. It's going to be the absolute best place downtown. Can we know where that is? No, trust them. The team is going to do charitable giving if we let them move. Can we have guarantees that it's not going right back to the Royals? No, trust them. The Royals are asking for a lot of trust for somebody that wants $1 billion. For somebody that wants, I think in this tax alone, $350, $400 to $450 million, something like that. It's a lot of money that they're asking for. As I kind of also wrote in this article that, again, is going up tomorrow morning sometime. If your best friend came to you and was like, hey, can I borrow $500? I think the first question most of us would ask is, what do you need $500 for? And some of us, if we're doing pretty well off, might not care what the answer is, but we'd still want to know. And
I sure as hell would.
Yeah. And so if we're doing really well off, we might not care and we might give them the money no matter what they say, but we'd ask. Now, if a stranger walks up to us and says, hey, give me $500, we definitely want to know some pretty strong details about where is that money going.
Yep.
John Sherman is a stranger to most of us. We know that
name. Rich stranger.
Yeah. We know that name, but we don't know that man. We still don't know that man after Bradford Lee's article of who is John Sherman on Royals Review. We still don't know who John Sherman is. We haven't met him. We don't know what's in his heart. And he's saying, give me hundreds of millions of dollars Don't worry about the details. I'll figure that out later. Trust me, it'll be great. You'll love it. Why should I trust you, John Sherman? What have you done to earn my trust, John Sherman? You've lied to my face. You've refused to share the things that you say would prove the things that you said. Why should I trust you? And so I'll try and close this with this because I don't want to go on forever and ever. I've already said so much. Um, the biggest fear everyone has is that the team is going to leave Kansas City if they vote no. They're like, as soon
Correct.
as I vote no, they're out of here. No, they're not. First of all, I think I've said this before. I know it's written in the article tomorrow. They're under lease until 2031. They're not going anywhere until 2031 unless they want to really get into some legal and monetary penalties. And the one thing the Royals have been truly consistent on with the stadium issue from the beginning is they want it to happen fast. They want it done fast. And the only way it's going to get done fast is if it stays in Jackson County. That is the only way it can get done fast. So if they want it done fast and they get a no vote on Tuesday or tomorrow as you're listening to this probably, or yesterday maybe as you're listening to this, I don't know when you're listening to this. If they get a no vote, they're not going to immediately pivot to moving.
Yeah.
John Sherman is big in Kansas City. He's not going to want to own a team in another city. So if the team is going to move, he's going to sell it first, which also takes a lot of time. The team. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that if you say no, the team will definitely never move. I'm going to say that there's going to be a lot that happens before they move. There's a lot of opportunities to keep the team here. And here's what I'm also going to tell you. This is what I'm really going to wrap up with. Is that if you say no tomorrow, or whenever.
Yeah.
I think the team comes back to the table with a new sense of, because the impression I get is that the Royals and or John Sherman really just didn't think they would have to try. I think they thought we're just going to get our yes vote. We're tied to the Chiefs. People want their sports. The Chiefs are very good. We're just going to get our yes. We're going to go on our way. And it's not worked out that way for them. So I think if they get that true no vote tomorrow, that what they're going to do is they're going to have to come back and say, all right, now we'll negotiate with you for real. When they had to negotiate with the SEIU local number 1 for real, they gave them almost everything they wanted.
Yep.
And the weird thing is that what the community wants is basically the same thing that they gave their own employees. And it wouldn't cost the Royals anymore to put the same restrictions on other companies operating in their district. To say, listen, you got to allow for labor peace. To say, listen, we're negotiating a wage floor. And once we come up with that, you got to abide by that. It wouldn't cost them anything because if there's a grocery store in their new district, they're not paying those people. The Royals don't pay them. It costs them nothing. It costs that company something, but the Royals don't have to worry about that. So why not just go ahead and agree to it? That's the part that boggles my mind. But and that's the part that makes me think that if they get told no tomorrow, that they will come back and say, all right, this is what you all want, and then you'll support us. It's not going to cost us anything. Fine, we'll give it to you. Please support us. And you know what I'll do then, Jacob? If that's how that works, I'll support it. I'll be just as loud saying, go out and vote yes. This is good for your community. This will improve people's lives.
I think that's what needs to be proved to so many folks who are either on the fence or even just on the vote no side right now, because that hasn't been proved personally.
Which part hasn't been proved? Sorry.
Like, it hasn't been proved that a new downtown stadium is going to benefit the community.
Yeah, I mean, the economics, the studies suggest that it will not be.
Correct.
At best, it will benefit downtown for a few years while it's a novelty.
Yeah,
and then it will stop. But again, the Royals have a real opportunity here. Had one, will have one if this vote fails. We'll still have one because there's other votes that have to happen at the state level, at the city level. So this isn't over even if they get the yes vote. But if they get the no vote, there's a real opportunity for the Royals to make a real difference in people's lives and for it to not cost them much, if anything, to do so.
correct.
And if they come back and they work with the community organizations on this stuff, the way that the community organizations have been asking them to, the way that I've been asking them to, the way that the Milwaukee Bucks did in Milwaukee, the way that the people building the Major League Stadium in Nashville did with Nashville, I'll support it.
Yeah.
I'll say, yeah, go ahead and give John Sherman his however much money he wants because he's improving lives in Kansas City, and that's all I ever wanted.
I like it. I like it. I'll listen. I'm gonna preface this with one thing, and I'll keep my response short and sweet. I don't live in Jackson County. My vote does not count in this whole thing. And frankly, there are dynamics of living in that county that I wouldn't understand. I know that months ago we were talking about Frank White's property tax issues and how he was seemingly, or it seems like he's ripping off residents there while his own home did not rise much in value, which I saw that like a couple weeks ago. So I thought that was interesting. But it's been very interesting to see how people, whether it be on social media, whether it be boots on ground, how they are handling this upcoming vote as it's drawn closer and closer. It also amazes me that it seems like the same people who use slippery slope arguments for other voting or political or social issues choose to ignore it when it comes to this very small tax. I don't see people out there saying like, oh, well, if the county thinks that they can just get us to vote yes on this tax because it's small and it's going to last a while and it's not going to impact us every day, even though it doesn't benefit us, then, they're just going to keep doing that. What's another 3/8 cents tax? You catch my drift, Jeremy?
Absolutely.
So I get it. It's not a major tax. It's not going to break anyone's bank. I'm sure that if you have a larger purchase, you're going to see some of the effects. Sure, whatever. But I cannot confidently vote yes when myself as a person, I believe in less taxes. I believe that a better deal could be struck, like you talked about, to really benefit the community, really have some impactful guarantees in there for the entire life of this tax. And I also believe in my heart of hearts that neither team is going to leave the Kansas City metro area if a no vote comes down on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I believe that through and through. If no comes and if the Royals are hard asses about it, sure, maybe they go to a different county. They had other locations picked out. Sure, whatever. Are the Chiefs, one of the NFL stalwarts, really going to leave Arrowhead Stadium? No, I don't think so. I really, really don't. So personally, if I was a voter, I would vote no.
Yeah.
That's just short and simple. That's how I stand right now.
By the way, I finally got my math right while you were talking about that. I realized my problem was that I was using 1 billion, which is 1 year's value.
Yeah.
And basically what it comes down to is if you made $100,000 a year and you donated $350, that's what they're talking about giving. $350.
There you go.
If you make $50K a year, we're talking $175 in charitable giving. Now, is $175, does that mean something to you? Sure it does. It means something to you. But is it like life-changing money you think you're giving away? Is it going to completely bankrupt you?
No.
You spend more than that on all kinds of things that mean less to you, guaranteed. You spend less than that in a month's worth of going out to eat, probably. A lot of us, not you specifically, Jacob, and not you specifically, listener, but a lot of people. I know these delivery apps are expensive, and I know some people that use them quite frequently.
Yes, agreed. All right, Jeremy, you got 1 more minute on stadium stuff. Anything else to say?
Just don't let the billionaire bully. Let me read my last paragraph from the article tomorrow.
I like it.
Here in the United States, we have long-held values like rooting for the underdogs and standing up to bullies. If you vote no tomorrow, that will be your opportunity to follow through on those values. Are you willing to lick some billionaire's boots on the off chance that not doing it will cause the team to leave the area, and knowing that if they stay, prices are likely to keep rising until you can no longer afford to go to a game anyway? Or do you want to stand up to the bully and force him to treat you with respect? I know which I'd rather do.
I like it, Jeremy. I'm really looking forward to that piece. And no matter when you're listening to this episode, that article will be up on royalsreview.com. And Jeremy's pen name is, you know what? I can't even remember, Jeremy. Does it
It's
have your full name on
yeah, the
the.
article. The funny thing is, the articles have my full name on them, but when I
Oh,
comment, it uses my username Hakias. I do not
uh,
understand. This is that's a Vox thing, an SB Nation thing. I don't understand why it happens that way, but it does. I think everyone
so
has
weird.
pretty much figured out that I am both of those people because I commented on Bradford's article and somebody was like, "Well, I knew this would draw some negative comments, and that the most likely one has already shown up." So they know who I am over there, and
You have quite a reputation.
you can go join Royals Review and you can comment and you can know who I am too.
I like it. I like it. All right. So I like I said last episode, I have a feeling that no matter how the vote goes on Tuesday, Jeremy and I are going to have a quick episode to hop on and talk about it and our immediate reactions. But for the time being, let's get to our Spotify Q&A responses and our reviews, and we'll get out of here. How's that sound, Jeremy?
I love it. I'm looking forward to this.
All right. So, like I said, we have a long list of Q&A responses. Y'all have really, really showed up the past couple of
And we
episodes, and
love it.
we do. We really do. We love hearing from everyone. If you want to reach out via DM, email, however you want to do it, go ahead. Feel free to. But the Spotify Q&A is a way that on every episode we will see it, we will respond to it, and you'll hear it on the air. So on our last full length episode, we asked y'all, how do you think the Royals will perform? Plus, what players are you rooting for the most? Longtime listener Fistifer said, I think we finish second or third in the division. I'm hoping Bobby Witt Jr. lives up to his contract. And you talked about that earlier on, Jeremy, how Bobby has lived up to that contract in the
I
first
mean,
three
through
games.
3 games of the
Yeah, 3 games.
potentially 14 years.
If you really want to talk about small sample sizes, that's a pretty small one. Let's see, Aaron Bailey. I think this was in response to something that you said, Jeremy. He said, by the way, back in the day, they had a $5 medium pizza at Pizza Shop if the team scored more than 5 runs. That
Yeah,
made my summer, even if it was only a few games.
yeah.
Weren't you talking about something like that?
We were talking about the donuts, the
That's
free
right.
dozen donuts from Krispy Kreme if the Royals got 12 hits or more.
Which, just think about it. Sunday's game, you would have gotten a $5 pizza and that deal from Krispy Kreme.
Yep. And Papa John's had a pretty good deal for a while where you could get like half off if they won or something stupid like that. I don't think they're doing that anymore. But the Royals have done some pretty good promotions in the past as far as getting some free food. I mean, is it high quality food if it's from Pizza Shop and Krispy Kreme?
No,
No, but it's cheap.
it's cheap food. Can't
I
go
like
wrong
cheap
there
food.
sometimes. Yep. Says, I'm going to be optimistic for opening day and say 78 wins. I
Ooh,
really hope we see Reagans keep performing and Vinny continue what he's started. Hey, we'll see what happens there.
yeah.
Let's see.
We
Uh,
forgot to mention Vinny's weekend because he was kind of a little quiet, but he had a couple walks and a hit.
yeah,
He looked a little off opening day, but he bounced back. And I think he's going to be just fine.
I think he is as well. I think he's still knocking off some of the rust, and we'll see what he looks like maybe in like 20 or 30 games. I
Yeah,
think that's where we can really make our assessments. I almost skipped over Royal Rupert's
don't do
response.
that.
They said third place. Pitching will be competitive, which it has been so far. Offense will be dragged down by Renfro, Frazier, and Isbell. Which
Oof.
I mean, Isbell's been pretty solid so far. I
Isbell,
would
that
say,
he ripped a home run today that I knew it was a homer off the bat. And every other home run that I saw today, I was like, I think he got under it too much.
yeah,
Isbell's, I was like, no, that sucker's gone.
it was a no doubter, man. It was great. Rupert went on to say the team will need Gentry and Caden Wallace to make big strides this year. Yeah, I think those two prospects have a lot riding on their 2024 seasons. Exodore says 72 and 90. It's really hard to lose 100 games, and I think this team is a lot better than last year, but not nearly good enough to compete for the division. I'm hoping Vinny has a great year. I think that's a very valid response to what
Sure.
you think the final record is going to be. Still a 16
That's where
game
most of
improvement.
the prediction systems have them is around that number of wins. So that's extremely reasonable.
And then finally, Matt Kirsch 23 says 75 and 87, hoping for an injury-free season for Vinny with 30 home runs and a nice rebound year for Salvi of at least 2 WAR. I couldn't agree more on that. I've talked several times about how last year was Salvi's first full season with a negative FWAR and how that was so concerning. And Jeremy, you've talked plenty of times about Vinny's what is it? His what shoulder?
His unstable shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah, I just hope he stays healthy at the end of it all. Let's see here. You know what, Jeremy? My truth be told, I'm still fighting a little bit of a bug. Do you mind reading the last recaps here, the Q&As
Oh
on
no,
the
sure.
recap? Thanks, man.
So on the recaps, you want to keep it simple. You're asking what people think of the episode. You think you should change it, but it's the
Yeah.
default input for each episode. So maybe you're thinking about maybe asking people what they thought of the game instead. But anybody who has an idea should hit you up on Twitter at Jacob Milham KC or via email at jm. Oh my gosh, I
I
cannot
know,
believe you're
right?
going to give people this email. jm1@gmail.com. You can also hit me up, Hagias or Jeremy M. Greco at gmail.com, and I'll make sure he gets these. But here are the responses so far. We've got Luke, who said, I literally hit the yes on liking the podcast before starting it. You do great work, and if you have time to do these after games, they're great. Thanks for your hard work, Jacob. I agree. You do a lot of hard
Aw,
work around here,
thanks,
and
Jeremy.
it's appreciated. Christopher said, I liked that it was timely. So Fistifer says you're on the ball, buddy. Ginger 620 says it was better than the ninth inning yesterday. Hard to be worse, but not as good as the phoenix of the team that will rise from the ashes of yesterday's loss, which will guide us out of the darkness and into glory in 2020. They certainly put a good start on that phoenix rising today.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
Jack says, great opening day episode. Will you guys be going to Baltimore for the second series? I'm in Georgia visiting my family for the Easter holiday, so I'm definitely not going to Baltimore. And I don't, you live in Virginia. I do not. So I'm not particularly close to Baltimore anyway. And you already said you're not going to get to go there,
Yeah,
which is kind of
unfortunately
a
not.
bummer. Camden Yards is a beautiful park.
It is. It's gorgeous, man.
Luke 5747 also says, can't hit the panic button yet. It's 2 games and against the team that's supposed to win the division. This first month might be rough, but we have to stay positive. And I think we said kind of the same thing. So we're right there with you, Luke. And then Fistifer said, loved it. And that's as best a finisher to those responses as I could think of. Loved it.
Thanks, Jeremy. Sorry, man. I don't know what it is, but when I get really congested, my jaw hurts if I talk too much. It's the oddest thing.
It's the congestion.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Jeremy, I'm just trying to do my best job over here. I'm trying to live my best life. And the pollen is making that impossible. Okay. I can't I don't have the strength to rip my shirt off this episode.
I'm so disappointed.
As you should be.
I had to turn my camera off because someone told me that my video about the stadium issues was not good because I don't brush my hair and because you can see a pile of boxes in the background.
Whatever.
So I didn't brush my hair today, so no video for you.
How rough and ragged of you, Jeremy. How dare you not brush your hair every single day, every single minute. Oh my gosh. Listen, we're people. We're real people. I ain't gonna
I'm
brush myself up.
Extremely real.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a robot. That's a joke for all you old Royal Review people.
I think I know a little bit of the backstory on that one. You'll have to tell me another time, man. Listen, I'm going to get my review out of the way so you can talk about yours because I'm pretty sure it's going to be a good one. How's that sound?
Great.
So oddly enough, my review this episode is going to be over a dish that I made for my wife. Was it last night? It was either last night or the night before. I made her some chicken tikka masala. So this is something that I've had in India. I had it in Diego Garcia when I was stationed there as well.
Why don't you just brag a little bit more about your world travels, Jacob?
I'm kind of a big deal, Jeremy.
We all better join the Navy.
I know, right? It's you see the world. It's a lot of water, but you really see the world. So basically, what it is, it's chunks of chicken in like a orange sauce. The chicken's marinated in spices and yogurt, and it's all roasted together in the oven. and it has like this really nice creamy sauce that has tomatoes, coconut cream, and like the masala spice mix. It's got a little bit of heat to it. It's a little sweet, a little bit of tangy. It's a good like staple dish over there, I would say. It's really similar to butter chicken if you've had that before, but it was just a good nice thing to whip up real quick, really easy to cook. I know they have like pre-made sauces out there. If you want to do that, just go grab a bottle of that, put it with some cooked chicken. But if you're looking for something new, chicken tikka masala is where it's at for me.
Nice. I'm a very picky eater. I don't like
Oh
butter
yeah,
chicken or chicken tikka masala,
really?
but more power to everyone who does like those things. I will continue to eat my plain chicken tenders
Fair
like
enough.
a 5-year-old who doesn't brush his hair. So my review this week is I'm gonna go. I'm kind of giving you a classic here. I haven't had an opportunity really to enjoy anything new, but opening day was also the 22nd anniversary of Kingdom Hearts, the video game that completely changed my life. Prior to Kingdom Hearts, those of you who follow me on social media know that I am a little bit of a weeb. I like the Japanese video games, and I watch the animes. Weeb, for those of you who are not in the know, means somebody who just loves Japanese stuff to an unreasonable degree.
Very
But
unreasonable.
before Kingdom Hearts, I refused. Dragon Ball Z was on Cartoon Network. I would not watch it. What is this Japanese animation style? This is not good. I do not like this. I will not. And then I played. So funny story about how I even played Kingdom Hearts is that I was big into the Disney Channel, not the Disney movies when Kingdom Hearts came out, the Disney Channel. I liked their TV shows and their made for TV movies, such as Luck of the Irish and Alley Cat Strike or whatever. I don't
Mhm.
know if I'm really aging myself, but somebody out there's got to remember those, right? Anyway, so I would watch Disney Channel all the time. Kingdom Hearts was basically a crossover between Square Enix, the Final Fantasy series, one of the most popular, biggest RPG series in the world, and Disney, because Square Enix looked at Mario 64, and said, "We want something that's that big, but we are not Nintendo. We are not Mario. How are we going to accomplish that?" And they said, "Well, what if we partner with Disney?" And Kingdom Hearts was born. There's a somewhat apocryphal story about a Square Enix executive sharing an elevator with a Disney executive in Tokyo and kind of pitching the idea and starting to rough out like the relationship that would lead to it. I have no idea if that's real, but it was a story that definitely went around. So I still wasn't going to play Kingdom Hearts, but I was very aware of it. And then I went to my local Blockbuster because 22 years ago was a long time ago, y'all.
Damn
Went to my
blockbuster.
local
Goodness.
Blockbuster. This was kind of right around the beginning of Netflix. So what they had was they had a monthly subscription thing where you could go to your Blockbuster, and they had a game version of this. I think they called it Game Pass, actually, where you could pay a monthly fee, and then you could rent a game, and you could hold on to it for as long as you wanted.
Wow.
Or you could return it as soon as you wanted and just trade it for another one. So instead of renting a game and you pay for it for a week and, oh, it only lasted me 2 days, or, oh, I hate this, and you take it back and now you got to pay, the rental fee for the next game you want to try. You're just
Uh-huh.
like, oh, it really gave me, it was my first opportunity to try games that I wasn't sure I wanted to play. And I went there intending to get a Lord of the Rings video game. There were these action games that came out around the Lord of the Rings, and what I didn't know at the time was that there was no Lord of the Rings one. They started with the Two Towers because the Lord of the Rings isn't actually very action heavy. So the first
Mhm.
game was just the Two Towers, which is the second book, the second movie, and then they added in at the very beginning the couple of fight sequences that were in the Lord of the Rings. So I went there looking for the Lord of the Rings. They didn't have it, and I'm like, well, I'm paying this monthly fee. I need to get something. None of these games look good. I will try Kingdom Hearts because I keep seeing it advertised on Disney Channel. And if I hate it, I'll bring it back tomorrow. And I fell deeply, madly in love with the game. It
Aw.
is the first game I ever beat without cheating, without using cheat codes, without using Game Shark. So it will always have a soft, even if I didn't love the characters in the story. And it was kind of my first introduction of what I later learned was kind of an anime and Japanese video game trope of friendship trumps everything. The
Oh
power
yeah.
of friendship was my first introduction to that. And I just fell in love with it because of the friendship stuff and how like Riku was his best friend, but then he was a villain, but then he was his best friend again, and he was, these were complex characters in what is ostensibly a kids game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just had so much fun with it, and it was a gateway for me into everything else. I went to college a few years later, and it was still my favorite game. And I was playing. Became an RA. I was on duty in the lobby one night, playing it on the lobby TV, and one of the guys in my dorm walked through and said, "Oh, you're playing Kingdom Hearts, huh? What's your favorite Final Fantasy?" And I said, "Oh, I've never played one before." And he said, "What? Hang on a second." Went to his room, I never forget this guy. His name was Blaine, and I didn't ever really talk to him before or after this. But he went to his room, he got his copy of Final Fantasy X, brought it out to me, and said, "You must play this game now. You cannot play any more Kingdom Hearts until you play Final Fantasy X." And like that was finally when I learned that like you didn't need to start at Final Fantasy One to understand the Final Fantasy story, because each game has its own independent story. And so I played Final Fantasy X, and that was kind of it for me. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a long story, but that is the huge impact that Kingdom Hearts has had on my life. I would not be the person I am today without Kingdom Hearts. Those of you who have been longtime Royals Review readers may remember the day I hijacked Royals Review to announce Kingdom Hearts three's release. The rumblings that morning were all just
Oh,
Kingdom Hearts 3 things. So I have a good time with it, and that I'll stop talking now. I've already gone way over my 3 minute allocation, I'm pretty sure. But
it's all good.
that game has massively changed my life, and I'm so glad it's here. And I cannot believe it's been 22 years.
Been a long time, man. That is really crazy to think. I remember, like, I vaguely remember seeing the big like back of a magazine cover,
Yeah,
like the back of, I think it was the back of comic books. That's probably what I remember for it. Like that would be reserved for ad space.
yeah,
I remember like massive Kingdom Hearts ads, and
yeah,
very confused about why like Donald Duck was holding a sword.
yeah.
I was very confused by that.
Yeah, there's plenty to be confused about, but there's also plenty to love.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem for people was that the series was spread out over so many different consoles. The first game is on PlayStation 2, but then they had kind of a halfway sequel game that went on Game Boy Advanced that was like kind of retold the story of the first game, but like did things in a different way, so that there was stuff that told new story that then led into the second game. So if you played Kingdom Hearts 2, which also came out on PS2, but you didn't play Chain of Memories, which only came out on Game Boy Advance, then you didn't know everything that was going on, and on and on and on the PS2, or so they had on the PS2, on the GBA, on the 3DS, on they had a phone game, they had a browser game, they had
Dang.
a PSP game. But when they came out with Kingdom Hearts 3, they released a collection of every game on both PlayStation and Xbox. So if you're like, man, where do I start with Kingdom Hearts? You can just go get that collection and you'll have everything.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. Listen, we have definitely gone long on today's episode. How about we go ahead and get out of here, huh?
Fine.
It's not your fault. Trust me. I remember very vividly before we started the podcast, like, hey, we're just gonna push through the game stuff real quick so we can get to the vote, because I'd already, you have been gracious enough to delay it until Sunday's episode, and yeah, that didn't happen.
I, I wanted to do that because I care about this team. I care how it performs on the field. I've been a fan for almost 30 years now. Before I understood stadiums and people paying public money to billionaires and all this nonsense that we were kind of dealing with. I care. I want to watch this. I want this team to succeed. I just also I don't want it to be at the expense of the regular people who live in Kansas City.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, man. I am interested to see how the final 2 days ahead of this vote pans out, and how the vote itself pans out. But y'all, that is going to do it for today's episode. Please drop a 5-star review or subscription wherever you're listening, whatever the heck it is. It really does help out the podcast. I'll be straight up with everyone. I really want this podcast to grow. I know Jeremy does as well. We try to have an informative and entertaining podcast here about the Kansas City Royals, and we would love it if you shared it with your friends, or if you just supported the podcast in that way. It would go a long ways, really would. Please make sure to check out Royals Review as well. Like, bar none, the top Kansas City Royals site out there. They got the news, analysis, and commentary you need on all things Kansas City Royals. There are 159 games to go. We have a long, long time until the finish line, so you're going to want to hop on the rides.
Oh, one more thing, sorry, that I forgot to mention.
Oh, you're good.
I'm not the only one writing about the stadium tomorrow. Our other editor, Matthew Lamar, is posting an article tomorrow. So if you're really tired of my perspective, if you'd like a different perspective on the issue, Matthew Lamar is a tremendous writer. I've learned a lot from him. I respect him a great deal. So please check out what he writes as well.
I'm very, very appreciative of you remembering that, Jeremy, because I completely forgot about it. I know it was in the Slack channel, but I forgot. All right, on that note, for myself and Jeremy, thank you to all the listeners out there for supporting us. As always, if you ever have a question or you just want to chat with us, hit us up on X. Our links are down in the podcast description below. And until next time, go Royals!